Hello. Hi. Welcome. I have absolutely no idea how many people we've got because, ironically, time management, I managed to get the timing mixed up. So it turns out that the world works in universal time, and UTC is the one time zone that kind of everyone really knows. And confusingly, here in the UK, our fundamental time zone is UTC, but now it's summertime, and I just completely forgot that Google and YouTube work in local time. When you set a time, you're not setting UTC, you're setting local time. So I managed to set YouTube to be ready for this call, for this live stream at 4 p.m. My local time, which is actually 3 p.m. UTC, and then advertise it for UTC. Which, if that confuses you, then whoa. Anyway, I'm not going to start saying anything kind of that I'd prepared to say until 4 p.m. UTC, because that's the time I put on my promotional material. And anyone who was expecting 4 p.m. UTC, I think they'd be fairly aggrieved if I covered some of the important stuff before they got here. So, but I did want to jump on and see who's here. Thanks for commenting, Kevin and Nicholas, that 18, 19 people watching. I don't know how many of those are actually just kind of logged in and planning to actually come and start watching properly at 4 p.m. UTC. So if you are here, please do put something in the chat. It would be great to see how many people we've got here. I just acknowledge people who are here. Kevin was here early, and of course Kevin was the person who suggested this topic for today. So thank you very much, Kevin. It looks like it's going to be a popular one. Anonymous. Great to have you here. Need all the help you can get with time management, so I'm here to give you that help. And what I really want to be able to do is to give you the help that you want. So do use the chat to ask your questions. I can then kind of get those kind of questions all logged. I've got some notepaper here. Well, a powerful time management technique is to tear scrap paper into quarters, and then you've got a mountain of spare paper. So Nicholas, good to have you on the call too. And a couple of things have come up. Anonymous talked about bullet journaling, so we'll mention that in principle. I've not actually been a keeper of a bullet journal. I find the paper format lovely. But don't do specifically. I haven't tried bullet journaling myself. We'll certainly talk about to-do lists and battle plans, from which I take that you mean, Kevin, kind of a plan for the day or a plan for the week or whatever. So we'll certainly cover that, because that's a very important part of good time management. Who else have we got? Nice PR guy too. I'm guessing you're in public relations. Welcome. Good to have you here. Michael Finn. Excellent. Good evening, Michael. Can't stay long. Okay, not to worry, Michael. You can always watch the replay, and that way you can kind of watch the whole advert. Gavin Wilson. Loved your stuff on project leadership. Thank you very much, Gavin. Project leadership is a topic I'm super keen on, understanding the difference between project management and what makes the difference between that and project leadership. So glad to have you on board with that. Nicholas has got a question. My question for you: spending some time organising our schedule and priorities makes us save time and effort in the end. But how much time spent managing time is too much? Oh my goodness, how much time is too much time to spend managing time? That's a very good question. I guess that's a bit of a piece of string sort of a question. What's my answer to that? I don't think it takes a lot of time to manage your time. What you do need to do is to be flexible and adapt to whatever changes come about. So I've got it down to the point now where I can spend around about 15 minutes, maybe not even that, maybe 10 minutes a week planning my next week, and then each day I just kind of look at what I've got planned for that day and just cast my eye over it and add anything that's cropped up in the previous day that I want to tackle. So, and then once a month I will set out a plan for the month in outline, which again takes me about 10 minutes. So that's kind of feeling like an hour a month, and given that most people will be working something like, 40 hours a week? No, yes, yeah, 5 8, 40 hours a week would be a reasonable amount of time to work for, I guess. And there are 4.4 weeks in a month, so that's 176 hours. So 1 hour, yes, 1 hour, 176. That's about 0.5%, isn't it? Somewhere between 0.5% and 1%, a bit closer to 0.5%. So if you're only spending 1% of your time managing time, then you will certainly be saving a lot more than that, and it'd be a good investment. I always think that if we're spending about 5% of our time totally on administrative functions that do not add value to our business, to our employer, to our lives, then that's about right. That's an appropriate level of overhead. It's about 5% for administrative work. And then if you're able then to spend the 95% generating value, generating a better social life, improving your family life, delivering value to your business or to your employer's business, or to your society or your community, that feels about right, 95 to 5%. So of that 5%, I'm suggesting maybe somewhere between 1 in 10, 1 in 5 of that time is spent on just thinking about how you're going to use your time. So that would be my answer to how much time should you spend managing your time. Who else have we got? Pierre Levay for ibcway.com. Okay. Thumbs up from you. Thank you very much. Nice PR guy from Powell River PR. Powell River PR. That's kind of sounding to me like that might be an American state. Can I figure out what PR would be? Portland doesn't sound right. Anyway, give me some clues. Anyone who knows where Powell River PR is. It's good to know, by the way, if where you're from. So if you're here and you can and you feel happy to, do please pop where you are onto the and what time it is where you are, AM or PM, into the chat. So it's good to know that. Anonymous, I like using the Eisenhower task categorization method when I can't see the wood for the trees. Absolutely, we'll talk about that. I'll make sure I make sure I put that on my list to talk about that, the Eisenhower method. Some people associate it with Stephen Covey because he made a big deal of it in his book on 7 Habits, and it is excellent. So we'll talk about that for sure. There's a kind of challenge that people have with that, which is understanding what. So the Eisenhower method, for those who don't know, there's a bit of a preview here, is about distinguishing between what is important and what is merely urgent, to use Eisenhower's phrase. And people know what urgent is because it's kind of like banging on your door, asking admittance straight away. But understanding what's important is that much more difficult. So we'll talk about that. Powell River, PR Powell River, British Columbia, Canada. Fantastic. Okay, let's go back up. So what have we got? We've got anonymous. Batching tasks is useful. Batching tasks is not just useful, it is the most productive way of doing things, because you get into a kind of mode, you get efficient and effective. And so those of you who follow me on YouTube would know that I produce 2 videos a week for the project management channel. 3 at the moment, because I'm experimenting with the 1 minute 60-second shorts on Saturdays. Give me a big kind of thumbs up or a comment if you like the shorts. Thumbs down if you don't like the shorts, because I'm interested in that. Because they, and that's a good example of batching things up. I knew I was going to be recording some videos. And so I do have 2 channels. So here, this one and Management Courses channel, and so I'm tend to record about 8 to 10 videos at a time, and do that about once a fortnight, and then edit them all and get them all up. And I was going to be editing some, so I kind of thought, well, I'll do some shorts. I'll give shorts a try. I'd been talking with YouTuber colleagues like Kevin, the Basic Filmmaker, who's here, and I think Michael Finn is here as well, about shorts and YouTube's kind of initiative to promote them, and thought I'd give them a go. So I sat down and I wrote a list of ideas, and when I sort of filtered them down, I came up with about 8 ideas, and I thought, right, I will try and record around a minute on each at the end of my recording session, and I did, and then I edited them. 1 or 2 of them were significantly over a minute and took a lot of time to edit them down right to that 60-second. I gave myself that task, but I created a template for them, and then I just bashed them out one after another, and by the end got quite good at that. So batching is really useful. Mohammed Hamoda, hello Mike, I've been following you for years. I just got my PMP last year. Congratulations, Mohammed. Fantastic. That's an achievement I've not had. I had the opportunity to take my PMP, study for it, when I was at Deloitte in the 90s, when it was still, you'll be jealous, Mohammed, but at that time the PMP exam, this is not good telly, is it? The PMP exam was the PMP handbook, the Project Management Body of Knowledge, is in its 1st edition. So this is the 1st edition. It's not worth thousands of dollars. But when I had the opportunity to study for it, it only had 172 pages, and look, page 172 is notes. And it's empty. So it would have been a lot easier, but then work got in the way, and I never actually got around to taking the exam. So congratulations, because you've studied under PMBOK 6, and therefore it's about that thick. A good solid inch and a bit in American money. So what else have we got here? Congratulations. There we go. Peter Lawrence. Hello, Peter. Thank you for all your videos. Any thoughts on energy management? Yes, I do have some thoughts on energy management, because actually it's very, very closely related to time management. So we'll definitely talk about that. By the way, in time management terms, I am not proposing to keep strictly to a 1 hour time limit on this, because they're just, if loads of questions come up, then I will just keep answering them until we run out of questions. But what I will do is make sure that by the end of the hour, after we start formally, I've told you about the offers, and I've gone through the core material that I really wanted to cover that I think is going to be most useful to you. Good. What have we got? Powell River. PR is Powell River. So British Columbia, Canada. Nice PR guy too. If not public relations, nice Powell River. Okay, great. Okay, hence the little I can see on my screen. I've got a tiny little screen here. I can see that it looks like someone maybe perhaps mountaineering. So not sure because my geography is weak and my globe is out of reach on the windowsill over there. Whether British Columbia is east or west side of Canada, so I'm not sure what size the time gap is, whether it's mid to late morning or early morning for you. Anyway, Nicholas Turcotte Legare. Okay, Montreal, Quebec. Okay, hence the French name. 8:45 a.m. So you're on the same time zone as Portland, Oregon, I happen to know. Okay, 11:45 a.m. in Quebec. Fantastic. Bimplebod. BA from Croydon. Okay, Croydon a little bit closer to home. In fact, I had a girlfriend that lived in Croydon, maybe not watching. And I, for a while, lived very close to Croydon, just down past Warlingham. So welcome to my Croydon follower, Bimplebod. Pialaville for IBCWay.com. Atlanta, Georgia, 11:46 a.m., I guess. Unless Atlanta, Georgia's slipped all the way around the world. Exaggeration. There are 2,000 methods, says Kevin, the basic filmmaker. I hate methods. It's like the 15,000 methods to run a YouTube channel. Yeah. I mean, there are so many different ways of managing your time. And actually, I don't like systems, because even if you can find someone for whom a system is appealing, then you're going to have the wrong system for them. Good. 8 to 10 videos at a time. Man, I need to get to work. Yes, you do, Kevin. Yes, you do. But I enjoyed your compositing video today. So that was good. Okay. So just to prove that I do eat my own dog food. Is that an expression that you have various places around the world? Here's kind of my batching process for making videos. And you can see it's 11. So that's the current one. So those are all the ones I'm working on at the moment. And, you know, there's a list of all the videos coming up and the dates they're coming up, and these are the ones that aren't yet edited. You can see I've got a lot of editing to do tomorrow. So good. We're getting quite close on the 5 p.m. here, 4 p.m. UTC promised start time, so we'll get started properly. But this is great. I like being able to catch up on the comments. Slightly off topic, says Gavin Wilson. I'm a PM, but have an interview next week for project leader. One tip, please. Okay, so the tip I will give you is to think about one perspective on project leadership that you think is particularly important and distinctive and says something about you and your style, and come up with an example from your career where that aspect of project leadership has been powerful for you, so that you can really illustrate it. Ideally, it's an example of you applying that approach to project leadership and getting really good results and learning from the process, so that you can talk to your interviewers about what you've done, what you achieved, and what you learned, all in one little case study, but relevant to leadership. And absolutely be prepared to answer the question. So second tip. You'll need to pay me by a super chat for the second tip. The first tip was free. This one's paid. Only joking. The second tip is be absolutely prepared with your own take on your own answer to what is the difference between project manager and a project leader, or project management and project leadership. If I were interviewing for a role in as a project leader, I would very definitely want to be clear that the person I was interviewing had a point of view on that distinction. What makes a project leader different to a project manager? There is no single right answer. There are lots of ways you could answer it. And if you're looking for inspiration, I've done videos around the topic. Not directly on the topic, but I think there is an article on the Online PM Courses website under articles where you can actually access an article on that. In fact, what I am not sure I have done is connected up my browser to this live stream. So I'm not going to do it now, but if you go to the website and click on and hover on articles, this is, I'm assuming you're able to do this on whatever device, hover over the articles link at the top of the menu bar, on the menu bar. The third thing down is all our PM articles, and if you hit Control F on Windows, Command F on Mac, you'll be able to search. You can search that list and just put in leader, and you'll get loads of articles on leadership. The one I would, if I were being asked, I'd be talking about servant leadership, or I'd be saying, you know what, I could give you one answer, but I'd have to choose one from the many answers in my fantastic book on Project Leader, Brilliant Project Leader. Probably too late for you to go and buy it, but if you get the job, you'll need this book. How are we doing? We've got 4 minutes before I need to start formally, so let's see who else is in there. Do hit me back with a follow-up if you have one, Gavin. Okay, Kevin used to live in Roswell, GA, Georgia. That's not the Roswell, is it? No, I think is that Nevada? You got it. Okay, nice PR guy. He's basically, I think, telling me that I've the penny has dropped and my brain has slipped into gear. And Peter Lee, which may be Peter or maybe his partner Phil, who manages the channel, so I can never tell whether I'm talking to Peter or Phil when the Peter Lee icon comes up, but whichever or both, you're both or either welcome. Sipping coffee while getting the brain back online. Okay, that's a computing metaphor, so I'm going with Phil there. Peter Lee, Let's Celebrate TV. If you're into cooking but you are worried that you're not a brilliant cook or you're not sure how to do things, Peter will demonstrate some fantastic recipes in a way that anyone can understand and with kitchen resources that anyone can access. So fantastic channel, some fantastic food there. Gavin Wilson, thank you. You're very welcome. Oh look, Kevin's posting links for me. Thank you. Anyone else want to help post links, feel free, and I'll make you a moderator. It is Phil, thank you. Okay, and look at that, we're a couple of minutes out now, so I'll just repeat my request. If you are online watching now and haven't done so but are happy to do so, I'd be delighted to have you introduce yourself on the chat. Tell me where you are. Tell me what your connection is with project management. Always good to know. Have we interacted in any other forum? If I don't recognise your name, and of course, if you've got a time management or personal productivity question, perfect time to hit me with that. I'm looking at my statistics. They're telling me there's something around 24 people on this live stream at the moment. So you have every right to remain anonymous, or even to change your name to Anonymouse. If you want, it'll have to be Anonymouse 1 or Anonymouse 2, so we've got one already. But if you're happy to say who you are, I'm happy to entertain you. Right, last cup of tea in the online PM courses mug. And we've got Adam Chalky. Chalkley. Hello, Adam. So I've seen you commenting on lots of things, and I know you've been using, I think it's one of my premium paid courses. I think you're a student in one of my courses, so it's very good to have you there. And for those who don't know, I have a number of paid project management courses on the site, and you get access to me on those courses. You can ask questions and interact, and I'm kind of considering whether some form of small format paid kind of club membership, Zoom type thing is going to be of interest to enough people to make it valuable to those people. We've got Violeticas from Lithuania, project manager, project coordinator, depending on project. Yeah, and you know what? There are so many different titles and names, and they do not have any absolute meanings. And certainly when you're in a different country that uses a different language translating these terms, you cannot rely on your own experience to say, I know what Violeticas, if I've pronounced your name properly, does exactly just from the job title. So arose by any other name. And lastly, before I welcome us all formally, Kevin, look at that, tea, coffee. Thank you very much, Kevin, for your generous donation. Super Chat, if you use Super Chat and have a question, I will definitely answer it. In fact, the community is small enough. If you offer a super chat, I will definitely do a live stream on the topic of your choosing. So thank you very much, Kevin. Rita Aliyah, Rita from South Sudan. Do you know? I'm not sure we've had anyone on the live stream from South Sudan yet. Gained a lot from your trainings on project management, which has helped in my current MBA classes. Fantastic. Probably my management courses content is going to be at a level below what you need, but you might find if you have a look at the management courses YouTube channel that there might be topics there that help with individual components of your course. I can't resist saying hello to John K. George. Good afternoon, John from India. Time here 9:30 p.m. India Standard Time. Always gets me that India is half an hour. Chooses the half hour. Maybe that's just so that they can kind of get a sensible average time across a whole vast continent. Things aren't great in India, COVID-wise. So I wish you well, John, and and hope you and all the people around you can get through this safely. Right. So welcome to everyone on this call. I'm going to start as formally. It's 2 minutes past the hour. Apologies to anyone who got confused by the time. Believe me, you weren't as confused as I was. So just to explain, but not by way of an apology, the reason why the timing is out is because I always set this for 5 p.m. UK time, but I advertise it at 4 p.m. UTC during the summer and 5 p.m. UTC during the winter, because UK time is based on Greenwich Mean Time, which is universal time. Unfortunately, I completely forgot that YouTube, despite being a global business, allows you to set time or defaults to setting time according to your local time. So I put in 4 p.m. Thinking I was being clever and getting UTC right. So my advertising said 4 p.m. UTC, but I had effectively scheduled this on YouTube for 3 p.m. UTC. We're here now, and we're going to talk about personal time management. We're going to talk about personal productivity. And though any of you, there are some people who come along who possibly know me from real-world trainings in the UK, and I was probably as well known in the UK in terms of my live seminars and the tours I did for my practical time management, brilliant time management seminar, as I was for my practical project management seminar. So I used to do a lot of 3-hour seminars around the country, and I was at one point I was touring 4 or 5 times a year, doing the seminars in 4 or 5 kind of centres at a time, and I would be doing practical time management every time, practical project management every time, and then sometimes how to read people, the 3-hour MBA. Yes, I apologise to Rita, who is doing a proper MBA that's going to take you a lot longer than 3 hours. It didn't earn you an MBA. And I had about 6 or 7 seminars that I would rotate, but I almost always included in the tour practical time management. So it's a topic that I think is very important, and I'll preface it by saying that my core approach to time management, my core guidance and kind of philosophy behind it draws upon 2 things. Firstly, it draws upon project management, because project management has the tools for managing schedules very effectively and for being productive. And secondly, it draws on human psychology to a greater degree than pure play project management does. Although anyone who was on the last live stream, I think it was, will remember me saying that one of the things you really need to learn as a project manager is about psychology. And I was talking in the kind of warm-up stage of this live stream about the need to have a point of view on project leadership, and I think when you move from pure project management to project leadership, one of the things you'll need is a reservoir of understanding of human psychology. So I've written a number of project management books, as you'd expect: How to Manage a Great Project, Risk Happens, Influence Agenda, about stakeholder engagement, and of course Brilliant Project Leader. But I've written an equal number of books on time management. And Powerhouse, of course, spans the both. So Powerhouse is a time management book that actually talks in terms of project scale. So it was originally going to be called The Guarantee, and was about how project management methods would guarantee you success in any endeavour. So that's a book about time management. My first was Brilliant Time Management, which was republished as Practical Time, as How to Manage Your Time. By the way, links in the description below. And then I wrote the Yes No book, which is one of my favourite books. This is about how to say yes and when to say yes and when to say no, and how to say yes and how to say no. And it features two big concepts. One I'll talk about later today, but the other concept is the concept of the gopher. And the gopher mentality is the mentality of I'm going to go for this, I'm going to go for that. And book is illustrated with fantastic little illustrations from my friend. I'm not sure whether this will focus from my friend Tony Goff, who is a brilliant artist. And then the last of the books I wrote is the Time Management Pocket Book, which is just a small pocket book, and I'll mention this later on. So I've got some kind of form on this, and one or two of you may have heard this story before, but when I was in my late teens, finishing up school, I took a year out before going to university, and while I was working in a research lab, I grew a beard, and I kept that beard when I travelled around India for 4 months, and then kept it when I went to university. And I was at university for 6 years, 6 or more years actually, just over 6 years, nearly 7. So I had a beard for about 7 years, and although shaving doesn't take a lot of time, it's maybe 5 minutes every morning, that adds up to about 30 minutes a week. And if you multiply half an hour by 50 weeks, that's 25 hours of shaving. Just call it 24 hours of shaving a year. So it's a whole day, not a whole working day, a whole day. And since a working day is about 8 hours, you could say, well, that's 3 working days a year spent shaving for men. Women don't have to do that, but you have other things. So what was the upshot of that? After 7 years of having a beard and therefore not shaving nearly so much, I must have saved about 20 odd days, working days of time. But when I was under time pressure, curiously, when I was writing Brilliant Time Management, I thought, well, I've saved that time, but I haven't. And when I talk in project management about resources, and people in training courses will say, well, time's a resource. No, it's not. People are a resource. Nuts and bolts are resources. Equipment are resources. Money is a resource. If you can put it in a cupboard and you can save it for a rainy day, it's a resource. Yes, I know it's kind of rude to lock people in cupboards and save them for a rainy day, but you could in principle. But you cannot do that with time. And in fact, not only can you not save time, but the titles of these books are a little misleading because they suggest that you can manage time, and you can't. 6 years at university studying physics taught me one thing. Well, it taught me lots of things, but one thing it taught me was that actually human beings do not understand time. Ask any confident, knowledgeable physicist to explain time, and they will fundamentally say we can't really explain it. We can give you lots of answers, we can kind of wave our arms and talk about the maths and how time works in different equations, but fundamentally we don't really understand what time is. It's a dimension, it's a process, whatever. There are lots of metaphors, lots of things we can say in language that describe how time works in certain contexts, but when we try to look across all the contexts, it doesn't work in the same way in all contexts. And so although we think we kind of understand it in our daily lives, we do not understand it as scientists. We cannot save time, we cannot manage time, we cannot even understand it. So all we can do is use it well. And I think in a moment I'm going to start by they say save the best till last. I'm going to actually give you the best right up front. My project management and psychology influenced approach to managing your time, and then we'll talk about the questions that you have, and I'll throw in some other ideas around time management that are useful particularly for project managers, for people who manage projects of one sort or another, or for people who consider themselves to be professionals delivering a service to a client group of any sort. So Before we do that, see who else has come on the call while we've been talking. So got that. Small world right next door to me. I'm not sure who is right next door to PR LeVay from IBCWaycom. That is the longest name I've seen on on a YouTube label. Small world right next door to me from Smyrna. Okay, right. Not sure where Smyrna is. Should do. Feels like it's kind of somewhere in North Africa, maybe. Adam Chalkley, what is the most valuable book in your collection? Are you talking about my entire book collection? Because what you can see behind me is a tiny fraction. Or are you talking about the ones I've written? I would say if you really want to focus on time management, it's this one. If you want the basics of time management, sorry, I should show you the second edition. The second edition is because this is the cover that it's available in now. How to manage your time. Link in the description below. If you want to kind of scale it up to organizational scale and to take it to a more advanced level and get some new ideas that you won't have thought of attached to to time management, and also think about it in projects, then that's going to be the one for you. If actually you're good at time management, you know all the techniques and you've applied them, and you still find that it's not enough, you really need to know how to say no, and that'll be the one for you. Also, if you find yourself having trouble saying no or knowing when to say no, if you are attracted by every new idea to chase it, Kevin on this live stream talks about squirrels, the metaphor of squirrels that attract your attention. If those squirrels, if you find yourself not only watching the squirrels out the window and daydreaming from time to time, but actually deciding that actually squirrels are interesting, you're going to study them, and maybe you're going to look for their cache of nuts because they're really interesting, then this is the one for you. Probably the most psychologically sophisticated book of mine. If you want to fit it in your pocketbook. This has just got loads of ideas. Very simple, very little explanation, just short, sharp, just the facts, man. So there is no best, but everything is right for a different person and a different need. Sorry, Mike, says Michael Finn. Gotta leave. Okay, bye, Michael. Peter Lawrence. Hi, Mike. I have to drop off. Oh, you just got here. Okay. Looking forward to watching the video later, Peter. Good. Yeah, please do. The video will be up and available whenever you need it. Right. Let's have a look at how I approach time management myself. And I came to this from a couple of directions. And the first was a colleague of mine. I was working for a client in the south of England, and one of our colleagues from the client organisation went on a time management course, and she described herself as chronically bad at time management. So she went on a 3-day time management course, and I have to say, if you're really bad at time management and you're behind on all your work, spending 3 days on a time management course doesn't seem to me like a terribly good idea. Someone asked earlier on in the kind of chat before we got started formally, how much time should you spend planning your time? Because if you plan your time well, it's worth every minute of it. You get time back. But I would say if you're spending 3 days on a time management course, that might be overkill. I had a 3-hour seminar, sometimes did 1-day courses. And my online video course is about 2.5 hours. She came back from this 3-day course with, and if anyone on this live stream is like me, you will have stationery envy. I'm one of those people. I see a nice piece of stationery and I want it. And it was a nice leather-bound portfolio with lots of rings and lots of different types of paper for different sections for different time management activities. And the plan was that every morning you'd spend an hour planning your day. And firstly, she said, I'm not a systems person. And within a couple of days, she stopped doing it. But the point she made was actually, if you spend a whole hour planning your day, then that's a little bit too much. And you're an hour behind at the start. As I say, I would aim to spend about 5 to 10 minutes a day at the beginning, and I've got to the stage where I'm spending perhaps 10-15 minutes a week planning my week ahead. Systems don't work for everyone, so I didn't want to create a system. And even if a system works for you, the system that will be well attuned to the way your psychology works, the way you like to get things done, will be very different to the system that will work for me. So I have a principle, and it is based on project management. The first thing we do when we're thinking about a project is we ask ourselves, what is the goal of this project? What do we want to achieve? And it's the same with time management. Whether you're planning your day ahead, or a week ahead, or a month ahead, or even a quarter, possibly a year ahead even, the first question to ask yourself is what do I want to achieve tomorrow? What do I want to achieve next week? And so the first part of my philosophy on time management is O for outcomes, and this is going to spell out OATS. So if you're keeping notes, just write OATS on your page, and I'll fill in all the first thing. So the first thing is think, what is the outcome? If I'm planning for next week, I'm going to be thinking about several outcomes. I'm going to be asking myself, it's Friday evening, what do I want to be different this time next Friday? If I'm at the start of my time management kind of endeavors and getting used to it, I'll be planning for tomorrow, and I'll be asking myself, it's 5 o'clock this evening, I'm going to be packing up now, but what do I want to be different 5 o'clock tomorrow? So outcomes are about changes. They're about worthwhile changes you create for yourself, for your employer, for your clients, for your customers, for your colleagues, for your community, whatever. And the first trap that we fall into is we say, well, I've got 8 hours tomorrow, so I will think about 8 hours worth of outcomes, forgetting that inevitably in most work, in most communities, things will get in the way. Things will come up, and you know things are going to come up. You know you could spend an hour or two dealing with stuff that crops up, clients, customers, your boss has a whim. But you plan 8 hours worth of stuff, and then you get surprised at the end of tomorrow when you only got 6 hours of it done, and it frustrates you that you didn't do everything you planned to do. So when you're doing your OATS planning, think about how much time you are likely to have to dedicate to those outcomes. So after that, the next thing, the A stands for activities. Having thought about the outcome, write a list of the activities you need to carry out in order to bring that outcome about, to make it happen. And in project management terms, I'm thinking in terms of work breakdown structures, particularly the UK European approach to work breakdown structure, where we tend to work with tasks or activities, whereas I know in the US, project managers tend to work with the products you're going to produce and then think about the activities that deliver those products. So that's kind of, you can think about if that's how you grew up. Any PMPs out there, for example, if you grew up in terms of products and then the activities to deliver them, then think about the outcomes as the products. And now we're talking about activities. And this sounds like a to-do list, but a to-do list is really toxic. If you're one of those people that's good at keeping to-do lists, what you'll find is that you make a list of things to do and you work your way through it during a day, but you keep adding to it as well. So at the end of the day, you haven't finished your to-do list, which is frustrating, especially if you're one of those people that loves ticking them off or crossing them off, which is known as a type A personality, by the way. And it's worth mentioning why it's called a type A personality. Type A personality is a term coined by two cardiac surgeons. And when cardiac surgeons label a personality type, that personality type is not going to be a good one, not for your cardiac health. So Friedman and Rosenman were the names of the cardiac surgeons. They noticed that most of their patients with heart problems had a common set of personality traits, which they labeled type A, and then they contrasted it with the other set of personality traits, the opposite, as type B. So one of the things they really noticed about type A people was that they backed into car parking spaces rather than going forwards. And most people think it's slightly harder to back in. I don't, I back in anyway. But the fact is that it's certainly quicker to leave when you're backed into a parking space, because the visibility is that much clearer. And so they're always in a hurry. They get real pleasure out of ticking stuff off, crossing stuff off their list. They busy, hard to kind of rest, and consequently their heart gives out. The good news, if you think, oh God, I'm a type A personality, I'm going to die tomorrow, Mike. The good news is that the evidence shows that it's only one element of the cluster of personality traits that is actually diagnostic of heart, of being likely to go down with heart problems, and that's the kind of sense of being totally frustrated and bottling it up all the time. Anyway, to-do lists are toxic because you get to the end of the day and either you haven't done them all, so you stay late and do it, and then you're totally exhausted, or you haven't done them at the end of the day, so you decide to go home and not do them, and then you worry about all those things you've got to do tomorrow, and therefore you don't get a good night's sleep. And whichever way it works, you then find your to-do list is running your life, and it can be toxic. The activity list in an OATS plan is actually a could-do list, a list of things you could do. So what we want to do is to take a could-do list as our inspiration for coming up with the outcomes we want for tomorrow, or the outcomes we want for next week or next month. And then when we get to the activity list in our OATS plan, that's actually a today list. It's tomorrow's today list, or it's Wednesday's today list, or Thursday's today list, and it's a closed list. It's a list of things you will do in order to deliver the outcomes that you believe are most valuable to you. And of course, when you have a today list, you don't keep adding the new ideas to that list, and therefore it is entirely possible to get it done. And it's probably we'll save that for a moment, actually. Once you've done that, the next step is the hardest, and that is about estimating the time. So the T of the OATS acronym is T for time. You need to estimate the time each of the activities on your activity list will take you. And that's what we do as project managers, estimate times. And as project managers, we know that's one of the more difficult things that we do. So the way to get good at it is to do it a lot. Estimate the time of everything you do. I'm going to wash the dishes. That'll take 15 minutes. And then when you finish washing the dishes, just look at your watch and see how long it did take. Don't try and figure out how to adjust your estimates, because most of them will be a bit off and you'll never know why. If they're a lot off, then you will instantly know why, and it's probably got nothing to do with how long the task should have taken and everything to do with something specific that happened. If you dropped a glass in the sink and had to drain the sink, get the glass out carefully and then start again, you haven't learned anything about estimating from that process. You've learned about being careful with slippery glass. It's the same if you're estimating how long a journey is going to take you. You know, if you get good, you should be able to estimate journeys pretty reliably. But if you're 2 hours out because there was an accident on the motorway if you're in the UK, or the Autobahn if you're in Germany, or the freeway if you're in the US, you haven't learned about estimating. You've learned about human error and the cursedness of fate. So the more you estimate, the more uncannily good you will get at it. And then the simplest thing to do is to schedule things into your diary. So that's the S of the OATS process. And scheduling is so important, because when you schedule it, you create a mental commitment, which means that when someone asks you to do something else, you can fairly easily say, no, I've got something committed. And you can look them in the eye and say, I've got something scheduled, but I'll do it later. Because you know that if someone asks you to do something and you've got a meeting in 5 minutes, you feel quite reasonable declining because you've got the meeting. But if the meeting is of value, then you don't want to be late for it. And likewise, if the task that you plan to do that was going to create an outcome that was going to create a worthwhile change, that's of value too. So you should be able to avoid those interruptions. And someone asked me about energy management. It's a really good time to talk about that, because we all have what we might call time cycles, peaks and troughs in our energy levels during the day. And a typical time cycle for human beings, but not for everyone, is, you're pretty groggy when you wake up, but after a shower and a cup of coffee or whatever your morning ritual is, you're pretty fresh and pretty alert, and you might have a peak of your energy early in the morning. Maybe kind of 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. But as you move towards lunchtime, your energy levels are sapping and draining away, and you have your lunch, and then your body's digesting your food, so it dips down, and then maybe you get your second wind late afternoon, 4 o'clock, and then it kind of tails off, and by 6 o'clock you're exhausted. But then maybe you're a night person, so at 10 o'clock you come alive again before you. So it doesn't matter what your time cycle is, but start to notice how your energy peaks and troughs during the day. What I recommend is you schedule the biggest, most mentally demanding, most important activities into the peaks, and you schedule the little dull things, the repetitive things that don't take a lot of attention, like clearing your emails out of your inbox. Schedule those into the troughs of your activity. Now, if you need a boost, clearly there are drugs. Caffeine will give you a bit of a lift. However, if you are a 3 cups or 4, 5, 6, 7 cups of coffee a day person, then caffeine won't give you a lift. What will happen is if you don't have your regular coffee, then you will have a real slump and a headache, and it'll all be horrible. And caffeine does nothing to support your energy levels. Water, staying hydrated will really help. Your brain will start to shrivel as it dries out, and it will become less effective long before you notice yourself feeling thirsty. So if you've got to get up and go to the tap or the water fountain or whatever to get a glass of water, your body will wait till you're feeling good and thirsty, but your brain will be at sub-peak level long before that. If you've got water on the table next to you, which of course isn't possible if you work in certain environments like factory environments where it's not appropriate, but if you've got water on a table nearby you, you will unconsciously take a sip whenever your brain is thinking, oh, starting to turn into a prune. And the last drug that I'm going to mention, the drug of choice for my wife and my daughter, is one drug that has 3 powerful effects. It gives you a sense of well-being, it gives you a boost of energy, and it creates alertness, and it's chocolate. It gives you a boost of energy because it's got chocolate. It gives you a sense of well-being because it's got fat, and it raises your alertness because it's got chocolate in it. It's got cocoa, which is a powerful drug, and so use it carefully because it will rot your teeth and do something to your waistline. I will pause there and see if we've got any new and interesting questions to answer. RV Addict, I love squirrels far too much. Well, I should be expecting some squirrel photography on your channel when you go travelling around America. Kevin, RV Addict, fantastic channel about recreational vehicles, about travelling with them and about maintaining them and equipment for them. Here in the UK, we've got American grey squirrels over most of the country, and very few of our own indigenous red squirrels left, just in the kind of far north and far west. Right, Anthony, Anonymous, I love stationery. Good, me too. Nice PR guy too. I have to go now. Okay, bye-bye. Squirrels are tasting when you eat them. I guess tasty when you eat them a bite at a time. So Peter Lee, who is really Phil, if you can get access to a British TV channel called Channel 4, one of their sitcoms is called Friday Night Dinner. That will be right up your street. It's about a Jewish family that meets every Friday night for dinner, and there is a running squirrel for supper gag that runs through the whole series. So hope I haven't spoiled the joke. Okay, Peter Lee, Let's Celebrate TV, next video. Yes, we'll be expecting squirrel on the menu. Shrivel brain syndrome. I have that. Answer equals water. Thank you very much. Yes. Coffee, caffeine and sugar do get you going. The problem is too much and it's a big crash later. Wonder why you're tired. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, caffeine is a very powerful drug. Some of the drugs that are legal in our societies, like caffeine and alcohol and nicotine, are all tremendously powerful drugs, and I suspect if they'd been discovered in the 21st century, they would never have been legalised. Thank you, Walter Raleigh, for going all the way to America and bringing it back to Europe and making it popular. Still, potatoes are a good thing. Okay, what else should we tackle? Someone, and I'm going to apologise because I'm not sure I'll be able to find it easily, mentioned the Eisenhower Matrix. And the Eisenhower Matrix is a fantastic time management tool for anyone. And it's a particularly good one for sorting out priorities. And so where it comes from is probably apocryphal, almost certainly off the cuff if he actually said it, remark from President, formerly General Eisenhower. And he said that that it is important when you're doing an important job like president or general or whatever, it is important to distinguish what is important from what is merely urgent. And of course, if we've got two binary choices, it's either important or it's not important, it's either urgent or it's not urgent, that gives us a little 2x2 matrix, which as a former consultant I love. Sort of 4-box model. So things can be urgent and important, which means that you really should be getting on with them straight away because their time is pressing and it's really important. They could be urgent but not important, and there's lots of stuff in our lives which you have to do now, but does it really contribute to very much? No, not really. There is stuff that is important but not urgent, and the most successful people in life focus their time on stuff that is important but not urgent, which means they can get it done before it becomes urgent, which means they can relax more, they've got time to do it, and they find they don't have so much stuff that is important and urgent because all the important stuff is done before it becomes urgent. So true time management, personal productivity success comes from doing important things before they become urgent. Get your taxes done early. Build relationships. It's not urgent that you have a conversation with a colleague or a customer because it'll wait till tomorrow or tomorrow or tomorrow. Time creeps by with its petty pace. But if you have that conversation with a client or you build and strengthen a relationship with a friend by having a coffee with them, that is important because that relationship will be of value going forward. It's not urgent to get a good night's sleep or to eat a good meal, but it is important. And if you take care of your body, you take care of yourself physiologically and psychologically, then it prepares you for a heavy workload. And then therefore it contributes to your productivity. And if you wait till it becomes urgent to have a good night's sleep, then you're going to need a lot of sleep and it's going to take you a while to catch up. So this is really important stuff. And then, of course, there's stuff that's not urgent and it's not important. These are Kevin's squirrels. You can call them displacement activities. They displace really valuable activities. They are easy to do. They're part of the process of procrastination, of course. We procrastinate when we put off doing something of value in order to do something else. Now, of course, there are different types of procrastination, but we tend to think of procrastination as a bad thing because we just do things that aren't important and aren't valuable. I don't know if where you live, if you get weekend newspapers, there kind of come stuff full of advertising, little kind of booklets advertising products and stuff. When you look through those, you know you're not going to buy any of it, and you know if you didn't look through it would be on the living room table for weeks before it gets thrown out. So it's neither important nor urgent, but you just flick through. Oh, I'd like one of those. I'd like one of those. You would like them, but you don't need them and you have no intention of buying them. That's just urgent because it's there, it's pressing, it's saying, open me, read me, but it's not important. And so the Eisenhower Matrix, or the urgent important matrix, basically is a great way. And I have very distinct memories of going to a London local authority in a traditional building, and I said, if you are trying to figure out your priorities in life, draw an urgent important matrix on a whiteboard, write everything you need to do, everything that's on your mind onto a sticky note, a yellow sticky note or a green sticky note, whatever you've got, and then put them into the boxes: urgent and important, urgent but not important, important but not urgent, or not urgent, not important. And I remember someone saying, we're not allowed to have whiteboards and post-it notes. We're, cash constrained, British local authority. So I said, well, I gave them my packet of sticky notes, and I said, use your doors, because they had 4 panel doors in every room, and just label the doors. Or just write it in your notebook. Get a big page in your notebook, draw your urgent and important grid, and just write down everything into the boxes. And then people say to me, but what if there's too much in the urgent and important box? Well, then divide that box into 4. Most urgent and most important. Most urgent but not quite so important. Most important but not quite so urgent. Not quite so urgent and not quite so important. And then kind of prioritize that way. So it's primarily a prioritization tool. Let's have a look at if there's any more comments we need to address. Kevin, never would have been legalized, but sure, let's legalize pot and mushrooms. Oops, got political, sorry. Yeah, well, let's not go into that. I like mushrooms, although ours never seem to do anything much for me. I'll be getting your books, but via ebook format if they're available. Okay, so yes, absolutely so. This one is available as kind of PDF download through a particular publisher, I think. All the others, these are all published by main publishers. These are published by Pearson, which is an international publisher. Sorry, that's the right edition. And so their version is Kindles, and I am 99% certain that Powerhouse, published by Wiley or Capstone in the UK, is also going to be on Kindle. So, oh, look at that. It actually says also available in ebook. So yes, please do get them in whatever format suits you best, however you like to consume your content. Mushrooms and squirrel in a pot. It's actually sounding quite nice. British Local Authority, BLA. So, Kevin, if you want to know how local government works in the UK, then we're going to need a little longer than this call. We are a country the size of one of your states, and we have a 3-tier local government system with a 4th special local government unit, of which there is only one example. So all legislation that applies to all local governments, we'll talk about the counties, the metropolitan authorities, the district authorities, the parish councils of the of England and Wales, and the Corporation of London. Very, very complicated local authority. I used to consult a lot with local authorities at the start of my career, so I know rather more than I need to know about local government in the UK, but that's not what we're talking about here. Good. If I've answered your question or met your point on the Eisenhower Matrix, who have raised it, good. If I haven't, hit me back with a question. Someone raised the question of bullet journals. Bullet journaling is basically, as I understand it, a way of creating lists of things that you need to remember. And I talked about to-do lists, which can be toxic, but one fantastic time management method that suits some people very well and others not at all is Mark Forster's autofocus method. And he didn't talk about a bullet journal, but keeps a journal and lists everything he needs to do down to a bottom of a page and then over on the next page, and keeps a running list. And the autofocus method is you look at the first page that has any tasks not crossed out, and you scan down it, and then you look down it more carefully and decide which of those tasks you want to do next. And then if you do it, but if there's nothing, you then look at the next page and you repeat the process and you keep going. And when you find something you want to do, you do it until you think you've reached a point where you're ready to stop, either because it's finished or because you want to stop, and then you cross it off and put it on the back end of your list if it's not finished, and you just keep doing it. And the autofocus method is fantastic for people who just kind of want to do what suits them but want to keep a running list, and I think bullet journals are good for that. But they're also good for, I've talked about a to-do list as being the things that are being useless, but I've talked about a could-do list as being effectively a running list of all the things that you might do, which is great, and that's how autofocus works. A today list is a specific list, a closed list of all the things you're going to do today. A couple of other lists that you can keep on a bullet journal which are worthwhile. Every now and then you will find you just keep going over the same things on your list again and again and again. You keep seeing them again and again and again. And every time you see them, you think, oh, I still don't want to do that. I really don't want to do that. But now it starts to get on your nerves, the fact you keep seeing it, and you start worrying that you should be doing it. But we don't do the things we should be doing. We do the things that we want to do, and we do the things that we must do. We want to do it, so it's a pleasure. We must do it because there are penalties, but we don't do the things that we should do. We just get guilty about them. We feel guilty about them, so we kind of should all over ourselves, as someone said. It's not my coinage, but I don't know who actually came up with that idea. So we should all over ourselves. That's the guilt for not doing the things we should do. So what I would then do is transfer all those things that you're not doing and you haven't done for ages, and you know in your heart of hearts you will not do. You move them, you cross them off your to-do list or your could-do list, and you move them onto your to-don't list, a list of things that you won't do. And then you tear that to-don't list out of your bullet journal, and if you are a person of courage, a man or a woman of courage, you will then do the right thing with that to-don't list. You will screw it into a small ball and you will file it in the small round filing cabinet on the floor by the door. If you are a person with somewhat less courage, you can keep your to-don't list in the bottom drawer of your cupboard or on the top shelf where it's out of the way, but you can get it if you need to. Oh, I remembered something I should have said. I did point out earlier that in the urgent and important matrix, everybody knows what urgent means because there's a pressing need, but nobody really knows how to define important. How do you know if something is important or not important? And my answer to this is that in order to know what's important, you have to know what your goals are. In the workplace, if you're working for an employer, you need to know what the goals of your job are, your job description, your requirement, what your customers need or whatever. If you're talking about your own business or your own private life, you need to know what your goals are, because something is important if either doing it will move you in the direction of achieving your goals, or not doing it will frustrate your ability to achieve your goals. So, and the reason I add that second bit is because, you know, I might have a goal to grow my business. To maybe I've got a goal to hit 50,000 subscribers to this channel by the end of the year. And if you're not subscribed, please help out. And if, by the way, you haven't liked this live stream, hit the button. Sorry, if you haven't hit the like button on this live stream, but you do like it, please do. So, if my goal is to grow this channel to 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year, which I think is a realistic goal for me, doing my taxes isn't going to help. But if I don't do my taxes, and then I've got to negotiate with the tax person, the tax agency, or possibly go to court and fight a criminal prosecution, that's going to get in the way of focusing on this channel. So something is important if it either helps you achieve your goals, or by not doing it, you will frustrate your ability to achieve your goals. So goal setting is really important. So what was I talking about? So bullet journals. We talked about to-do lists, could-do lists, which are a much better way of thinking about them. Today lists and to-don't lists, the things you won't do. And by the way, if you've screwed up your to-don't list and thrown it in the small round filing cabinet on the floor by the door, and then it crops up later and becomes genuinely important and urgent, well, you'll know about it and you'll put it back on your list. So you're not throwing away anything important. However, there is an exception. There are things that are on your to-do list or your could-do list which never get done, not because they're not important to you or you don't want to do them, but because they are too big to grab your attention. And for that, I'm just going to grab a notebook from behind me. Wrong one. Here we are. It's about 30 notebooks behind me. This is my project list. Project book, And this is, front it says, a source book for ideas and idea development. Started it in May 2002. If I have an idea for a project that I'd like to do, but I know I haven't got time to do now, or I'm not sure whether it's the right thing for my business, I write it in here. I take the to-do and I turn the to-do into a title, and then I write all the ideas I have for it in here. And when I have time, or when I'm thinking strategically, perhaps twice a year, I'll take a day to think strategically about my business, about my life, about where I want to go with what I'm doing. I will then kind of consult this for ideas for things, for projects that I might take on. They might be useful. So if you're a YouTube creator and you have loads of ideas, not just for individual videos that you might make, because probably not the right source for that, but ways to stretch your business in different directions. I could build a merchandising store, or I could design my own YouTube templates to sell to other YouTubers. You don't know whether that's a good idea for your business, but you don't want to lose it. Then keep a project list, and a small notebook is ideal for that. Let's see if we've got any more questions, please. I love questions. I've got a list here of loads of stuff that I haven't talked about yet that I could talk about, but the only way I know if what I choose is relevant is if what I choose is what you ask. So, who have we got here? Spending time to connect with others is important. I've had so many surprise opportunities I never expected doing that. Yes. The best source of ideas is other people. Whatever you do, whatever line of work, whatever line of community interest you have, if you can find a mastermind group, a group of people who are like-minded but not competing with you, just listening to other people talking about the way they do their thing, the choices they're making, can spur ideas. And for me, I would never go into a meeting like that without a notebook. And I've been a member of a number of different mastermind groups. I'm a member of a fantastic YouTuber mastermind group led by Kevin, a basic filmmaker, who's here today. A couple of my colleagues on that here as well. In fact, maybe that's just everyone on this call. So if find a group of like-minded people, and they will just be a source of ideas and inspiration, and also a great way to test the ideas that you're considering. So that's a great productivity tip. So there we go. Anonymous. Kevin, yes, I'm not keen on networking events, but keeping in touch with colleagues from previous jobs has been invaluable. So, Anonymous, me too. I'm not a keen networker. In a moment, we're going to see what Felicity has to say, but Felicity is a consummate networker. I know her in the real world. In fact, I liked her so much I married her, and fortunately, she was game for it. Felicity's a brilliant networker. I hate it. It's not for me, but the way that I kind of discipline myself to network effectively is I transform networking from an opportunity to introduce myself to other people, which is horrible, to an opportunity to find out stuff I didn't know. I make it if I go into a situation where I need to network, I change it mentally in my mind from a networking situation to a situation where I can find out new information, and I make it my mission to find out something I didn't know from everyone I meet. And what that does is, firstly, it makes it interesting for me, but secondly, if I want to know something from everyone I meet, what am I going to do? I'm going to ask them questions and I'm going to listen to them. And the best way, anyone who is a real expert on networking, like Felicity will tell you, the best way to build relationships is to listen to what people have to say and to take an interest in them and their lives and their interests. Because to any person, the most interesting thing in the world is themselves and their interests. So if you talk to somebody about what interests them, then they will think you're a great conversationalist because, hey, Mike talks about interesting stuff. So what did Felicity say? I think the autofocus method is what I do by default. I'm that sort of person. I shall keep a straight face and say, I think you are. Lists are great, says Kevin, but when they're full of maybes and thoughts instead of doable, attainable things, it's a mess. Yes, so keep a separate list. Keep a list of ideas separate from a list of actions that you could do, and then transfer actions that you could do onto your list of actions that you will do when you decide that they have the right priority and urgency. RV Addict, love your today list. The idea of a list for success is a list for success. Absolutely, it is a list for success. But the best thing about a today list is that when you finish your today list, you can pack up and go. You've done it. You've done it. It's not. It's a closed list. You could decide you want to do some more stuff. You want to stay late and do some of tomorrow's list, but you don't have to. And Teresa Amabile and Stephen Kramer wrote a fascinating book whose name I can't remember. My apologies. I'll try and find it and put it into the... I'll just write down Kramer Amabile. I'll try and find a reference to and link to it in the description over the next day or so. But they found that the one thing that is the best measure of how people feel at the end of a day's work, whether they feel happy and pleased with the day's work or frustrated, is not about what they did and what they didn't do. It's not about how the relationships panned out. Those are all important, but they didn't ask them what makes you feel good. All they did was ask them to keep diaries of what they did during the day and what they achieved. But they asked them to keep the diary at the end of the day. What did you achieve today and how do you feel? And they tried to find correlations, and they found that the correlation is when people feel they'd achieved something. If you have a big task and you go from a quarter of it done to a half of it done during a day, you've made a lot of progress. But people, that's not rewarding for most people because, oh, I haven't finished anything. If, on the other hand, you take that big task and you divide it into 10 or 12 components, and during the day, oh, I've ticked off component 4, component 5, and I ticked off component 6, I've achieved 3 things. So by converting your big thing into lots of small things, you get a real sense of achieving things. So make your today list quite granular, lots of things, but not so granular that there are so many things on it that at the start of the day you look at it and you go, oh, too much to do, overwhelming, because that's a whole other thing. So yeah. Peter Lee, who is Phil, I don't like lists. Good, okay. As you don't work to the end linearly. They end up being circular. Finish one thing, circles around something else. Yeah, I mean, partly that's because we keep adding stuff to lists, and of course partly if you work in an operational environment, and a large part of Phil's work I think is operational, then the same things crop up again and again, even if they come in a different guise. You're always going to have, you know, if you work in an IT setting, in a support setting, you're always going to have people whose computer stopped working for whatever reason, and nearly always it's user error rather than computer error. You're always going to have to cycle round and look at the latest updates and decide whether they're right for your technology environment and you're always going to have to look at new software. So the same things are going to come around, and if lists aren't right for you, there are other tools. Things like Kanban is a fantastic tool to use. What else have we got? Okay. Anonymous, please could you talk about how delegation can fit into time management? I'd be delighted to. Let's whisk to the bottom of the list and then I'll come back to delegation. I have a course on delegation and a couple of videos, but I'll give you the short form now. So, Felicity is your wife. Hi, Mrs. Clayton. Thanks for allowing Mike to come out and play today. Okay, Kevin, yes, I've let a cat out of the bag there. Hey, wealth of knowledge show here. Drop a super chat if you can't at least hit that like button. Yes, absolutely. Hit the like button. Don't worry about the super chat. Who needs money? I suppose I do, really, but not from you, folks. Just now. My issue with today list is it's supposed to be a closed list, but I often end up underestimating the time needed to accomplish tasks, and sometimes I don't even finish my list. So the three reasons why that happens typically. One is because you have the right number of tasks but for the wrong amount of time. You look at tomorrow and say, I've got 8 hours at work, so I'll make a list of 8 hours worth of stuff, forgetting that you've got to have coffee, you've got to have a wee from time to time, you're going to have phone calls, you're going to have interruptions, you're going to have email to deal with, and that 8 hours starts to look a lot more like 5 hours. So firstly, make your list 5 hours worth in this example, not 8 hours worth. Secondly, yes, estimating is a skill, and the more you do it, the more precise you'll get. Remember, estimate everything, but look at how long everything takes you. Don't try to figure it out, because you won't. But what will happen is our brains are uniquely well uniquely well evolved. Almost went off on a creationist jaunt there. Uniquely well evolved to spot patterns, and they will recognize patterns even where patterns don't exist. You look at the clouds and you see bunnies and steam trains and stuff. They're not there, but our brains make patterns. If there is a genuine pattern, because you constantly overestimate one type of activity and underestimate another, eventually your brain will figure that out and compensate. Third reason why we often don't get things done is because we start by scheduling all the little things into a block. And it's the metaphor that people tend to use is, for example, rocks and sand. If you pour a load of rocks into a bucket and then you pour sand in, the sand will fill the spaces between the rocks. If, on the other hand, you tip all of that out and put the sand in first, you'll get a layer of sand. When you try to pile the rocks in, they won't all fit, because now there's nothing to fill those gaps. So good time management and good scheduling, when you get to the scheduling stage of the OATS principle, start by looking at the big time-consuming chunky pieces of work and schedule them into your day first. And of course, the best times to schedule them are when you're at your peak of your energy level, because we talked about energy cycles, and then put the medium-sized tasks around them, and then fit in the little things like checking your emails in around those particularly least productive times, and the edge times, like between finishing the morning's tasks and going to lunch. Because if you start the day with checking all your emails, that could take you an hour. Whereas if you've only got 15 minutes before lunch, you can usually whisk through your emails and clear them in 15 minutes. And that includes all the ones that arrived since you got into work. Remember, email is not instant messaging, and nobody has a reasonable right to expect you to respond to email immediately unless you are on a help desk or that is your actual role, answering emails. So, yeah, to-do lists need a little bit of skill. Nicholas, what should I do? I think I've just answered that. Make smaller lists. Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, if your to-do list is always too long and you're not getting it done, then you need to make a shorter to-do list. I am a manual QA, says Sunshine. Okay for me to stay. I have no idea what a manual QA is, but you're perfectly welcome to stay as long as you remain respectful in the chat. That's my only requirement of you. Worst time management pain, says Kevin, basic filmmaker. Underestimating the time involved to get it done. Yeah. Also beating yourself up for not getting something done when it's just a lesson that you need more practice. That's absolutely true. But like you, Kevin, and I suspect like many people listening to this thing, I'm pretty good at beating myself up when I don't get everything done in the day that I wanted to. I would say nowadays, because what I tend to do, because I work on a weekly basis, this is my weekly plan for this week. Here's it's only 4 days, because in the UK yesterday was a bank holiday when nobody was working, and we had a family holiday, so I didn't plan anything in. But this is Tuesday. Here's the pink representing this call. Here's my mastermind call tomorrow, which I'm looking forward to as well. Here's a business phone call, and then I've got, I'm editing all day tomorrow, and I'm editing most of Thursday. What I often do is leave some time on Friday to kind of catch up with stuff that I wanted to get done earlier in the week, but maybe I did overrun, or a client called and wanted some of my time, and I gave them my time, or someone asks for some help and I choose to give it to them. So yeah. Right, now, delegation. Did promise Anonymous that I would talk about delegation. So delegation is absolutely one of the most valuable productivity time management techniques. In fact, if I say to you, here is something I need to get done, you have 5 choices. And they all begin with D in the English language, which is great. The first choice, of course, is... well, actually, no, I'm going to save the first choice till last. The first choice is actually to drop it, to not do it, to decide that actually it is not important enough for you to do it. If the task itself is not important to you, and by not doing it you are not damaging the relationship, if by doing it you will get in the way of doing other more important things, then the right thing is not to do it. You could drop it. But if you can't drop it, the next thing you could think about doing is diminishing it. Because people will set you a task and it will come at that size and that shape. And often that's the size and shape that it always has, that task. But sometimes if you ask the question in a rigorous way and you're open to new ideas, you may be able to make it this shape and this size. And suddenly it's a smaller, easier to do task. I have a friend who is an accountant, and she every month had to produce a monthly report, and it was a big, long, complex document, and it would take her 2 days to do. But one month they were in the process of, I think, a merger thing, and she was running out of time, and she didn't have 2 days. She had about half a day, so she just had to get something out. So she just put a lot of the charts that she would put in, she just put in as without narrative or just one line of narrative. She would summarize whole chunks of text, just instead of writing a chunk of text with a couple of lines. And the report went from, I don't know, let's say for the sake of argument, 20 pages down to 5. And she sent it off knowing that that wasn't satisfactory and it wasn't what people were expecting. And she steeled herself for recriminations from the board directors that were receiving the report. And sure enough, very quickly she got a phone call from one of the very senior directors who said, "Oh, this new report, I like it. Much better format, much more short, punchy, easier to assimilate, less time to read. Thank you very much for redesigning it." And she got other comments to the same effect. So she had diminished the task under pressure. But sometimes you should look at what you're doing and the way that you do it and ask yourself, are we just doing that this way because that's the way we've always done it? Or is there a compelling reason why we need to? So we could drop it, we could diminish it, we could defer it. So we've talked about procrastination as being a negative thing, putting off stuff that you should be doing because squirrels take your attention. Excuse me. Mute button on this is a bit hard to find, I'm afraid, on this mic. But actually, sometimes procrastination can have a real purpose. And that purpose is to put it off to a time when it is better to do it. Perhaps so that you can batch things up, to pick up on an idea that someone raised earlier on, that batching is very powerful. Sometimes because you haven't got all the information you need. So doing it now, you'd have to research that information, but that information may come to you later. So you could drop it, you could diminish it, you could defer it. The next thing you do is get someone else to do it, to delegate it. And that is a hugely important strategic move, as well as a practical, tactical time management move, is to get someone else to do it so that you've got time to do other stuff. Before I talk about delegation in detail, though, I'll tell you what the final option is. If you can't drop it, you can't diminish it, you can't defer it, and you can't delegate it, then yes, you have to do it. So those are the 5 Ds. So what is delegation? Delegation is, so the thing that people get confused about is the difference between delegation and allocation. So allocation is giving somebody their work. So say I've got 3 employees that are all employed to do the same set of work, and I get a task. Allocating it is giving it to one person rather than another. Delegation is giving somebody your work. And that's a great way to take the load off you so that you can focus on other work that only you can do, or that is more strategic, like relationship building, like personnel or leadership roles. But it also builds resilience in your team, because by delegating work to other people in the team, you're able to get them to learn new stuff. And the process of delegation I will talk about in just a moment. But I do notice it is, we've been going for just over an hour on the main timing, and I did promise that I would just introduce you to some of the resources that are available to you, and a special offer. So my apologies, I have actually managed to not connect up my screen to my computer screen to this. So I have 2. Let me actually just bear with me a second. This might get messy. So if I go quiet, just bear with me a second, because what I'm going to try and do is connect a browser window. So you might hopefully still hear me, but you may have gone horribly black and screen. So I'm just going to go to So, there we go. Safari. Okay. So hopefully you can see my screen now. Now, before I tell you about a paid course, which I'm going to paid courses, which I'm going to discount massively for you folk. Let's just put this on the screen properly. You can see I set up very diligently here. For those of you who don't know, I run a second YouTube channel called Management Courses, and there is a website that goes with it, which has the URL. I'll type it into the chat. mgmtcourses.com. I'm going to just test that. That needs an HTTPS, doesn't it, of course? Bear with me. Oh! You can see that I've been practicing this live stream very carefully, and I've got really, really slick at it. There we go. There's the URL. Now, this website takes all of the YouTube content and it puts it on a website in an organized way. So if you go to the courses tab at the top, and inside that courses tab you've got all of my courses that are available at the moment, arranged thematically, and under the managing yourself block there is a personal productivity course. That course is now complete, although I may add subsequent things. But some of the ideas we talked about, like energy cycles here, procrastination, 3 types of procrastination, how to deal with procrastination. We talked about goal setting, I've mentioned, OATS principle, if you want a reminder there, to-do lists, and 7 other lists you should use instead. Time management, prioritization, urgent, important, we talked about that. But we didn't talk about the Pareto principle, or backlogs, or overloads, or how to say no. So there's a lot of great stuff here for you. So that's all free, and you don't have to pay for that. You will get adverts because these are YouTube videos, but they're made easy to access. The other thing you can do is go to my main website, onlinepmcourses.com. Let's just go to the home page. There is, if you're interested in some training like PMP training or Six Sigma or Prince training, got a special offer on Grey Campus courses, but I'm not going to talk about that today. But that is the whole of June. If you click on skills courses, yes, that's fine, and then go to our professional personal effectiveness courses, the skills courses. 2 of those courses are practical time management and when and how to say no. Those 2 courses are based on the 2 books which we've got here. So Take Back Control, When and How to Say No is based on the Yes No book, and Practical Time Management is based, well, it's actually my 3-hour live seminar committed to individual video things based on how to manage your time. Those normally sell for $47 plus local taxes if you have to pay them. If you look in the description below this video, and I did actually manage to get that up this morning, in the description you will find links that take you to those courses directly, and you will pay less than 50%. In fact, it's a smidge over 40%. It's not quite 60% discount. I can't call it a 60% discount, but it's only a rounding digit away from a 60% discount. I think they're $19 for the whole of June, but only for June, because that is a ridiculous discount. But get it today. Practical Time Management and When and How to Say No, $19 each. That's a steal. The other course is not currently discounted, but watch this space. There'll be other live streams. Nicholas, thank you very much. Seven other lists video you just mentioned is one of my favourite videos of yours. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm really fond of that, and I would struggle to remember all 7 of them right now. But I've told you about the most important ones. I was going to talk a bit more about. I think I might have navigated to. I'm just going to go back to the browser window just in case. Didn't see it properly. I can't remember where I change screen. So here's the personal professional effectiveness page, and here are the 2 courses: practical time management, when and how to say no. So unless more questions come up, I've got one more thing to do, which is talk a little bit more about delegation, as I promised I would. There is, by the way, a delegation course. Whoops. Oh, done the wrong button again. There is a delegation course under skills courses, leadership and management skills. If anyone wants to go deep dive into delegation with lots of exercises and everything you can know about delegation. And there are a couple of videos on delegation on this channel, free as well. The delegation process is a 5-step process. So how do you delegate? The first thing you need to do is to consider precisely what it is you need to achieve and who is the right person to delegate that to. That's called matching. And it's very tempting to delegate all the best stuff to the same couple of people because they're your favourites. You can trust them. And then by default, we sometimes then end up delegating the worst jobs to a couple of people we don't trust so much and don't like so much. That's poor management, poor leadership, poor human beingness. If human beingness were a word, which it isn't yet. The right thing to do is to match against people's availability, people's interests, people's career goals, what they want to learn, the resilience needs of your team, building up resilience within your team, development opportunities to prove to you their capabilities. And once you've matched, you need to brief people effectively. And the more time you spend briefing, the less time you'll spend later down the line being bothered by, oh, but Mike, what am I supposed to do here? Or I don't quite understand what this is about. So a really good briefing session where you're very clear about the context of what needs to be done, very clear about the outcomes you expect and the objectives you're setting, very clear about the authority you're giving. Are you giving someone authority to make all the decisions and to do everything their own way, or are you limiting that set of permissions, if you like? And the timescale. When is it that it's due? What are you really? What's the timescale? And I would also be very, very clear about what good looks like and what excellent looks like, so that the person you're delegating to can judge how much work they want to put in if they know what response they want from you. If they want you to tell them their work is excellent, they know how to achieve it, what they need to do. If they only want you to say that's a good piece of work, that's done properly, then they know how to achieve that. But what should never come as a surprise is your response to their work, because you should have given them what I would call the evidence procedure that you will be using. The evidence procedure says that if I observe this, if what you do can do that, then I will consider it to be good, or I will consider it to be excellent. And they should be able to apply that evidence procedure for themselves. So so the first thing we do is we match, then we brief, and then we get agreement. We gain commitment. We look them in the eye and say, do you understand what I'm asking you to do? Do you feel that you've got the resources and the skills and the briefing necessary? And if they say yes to both of those, you then look them in the eye and say, will you get that done by this deadline? And if they say yes, you can reciprocate by saying, in which case I will give you the support that you've asked for. Once you've got that commitment, then you need to monitor them in an appropriate way. If they are someone who has lots of experience, lots of confidence, lots of capability, then you don't need to monitor them very closely. If they need more support, if they need more guidance, if there is more risk in what they're doing, they need closer supervision. And then at the end, you need to give them good quality feedback on the work that they have done. You need to praise their contributions. You need to recognize the success they've had and celebrate it if appropriate, and give them the kind of feedback that will help them to understand their performance and reflect on it, and therefore next time they do something, they can do something harder to a higher level. Right, I think it's going to be time to wrap up soon. Oh, Kevin's been popping links. Thank you. No, I'm not affiliated with mine. No, he isn't actually. I should make you an affiliate. Yeah, thank you very much, Kevin, for that. Patrick, oh, good to see you here, Patrick. Welcome. It looks like you're off soon, so as indeed are we all. But That said, if you keep asking questions, I will keep hanging on. So I don't want to shortchange anyone, but I also don't want to use up too much of your time. Kevin says, first thought of a good manager when things go wrong with an employee. What could I have done better to help this person succeed? Absolutely right. I sometimes get calls from managers who want me to train their staff because their staff are bad at certain things, and my first question is, what have you done to help them to be good at it? And if their answer is I've done nothing, then they're taking a shortcut by hiring me and not convinced they're going to support them as they try to implement it in the real world. If their answer is, well, I've tried this, I've tried that, and I feel I've reached the end of my capabilities in supporting and guiding them, then I know that it's the right thing for me to do to get involved. Okay, I think we are at the end of the chat. I'm looking at the my phone now with the live stream as you're seeing it, which is very strange because of the lag. But I will thank everyone for joining. I hope it's been really useful to those of you who have been here. For those of you who like statistics, looks like we kind of been bouncing around 24 people on the call, which I think is a record. So things are going up nicely. It's great to have you on. Let me just tell you, if I can remember where I wrote it down, which notebook. Let me tell you what I've got in mind for next time. So next time we get together will be the first Tuesday in July, which from recollection is, no, I won't try and recall it because I'll get it wrong. It's the 6th of July. So the next time we get together will be the 6th of July. And what will we be talking about? We will be, as he flicks through, what was requested was projects and politics. Political acumen is very important for us as project managers. Just lean across and get some more light. Political acumen is important, particularly as we move up from simple project management of simple projects in simple environments to more complex projects and leadership in big environments. So we'll be talking about project and politics in July on the 6th. So the Americans amongst you will be reeling from a Sunday, 4th of July, hopefully out of lockdown, hopefully a really good 4th of July celebration for all of you. But if you have ideas for other topics, please do either put them in the chat, put them in the comments below, email me directly, contact me any way you choose with ideas. I've got lots of ideas for future topics, but I want to make them as relevant to you as possible. So if you have an idea for what you want, then I will assume you're not on your own. Thank you very much indeed. Let's just check if there are any things. Andrew, missed the live. Will the video remain after it's over? Yes, it will. It won't be coming down. Sometimes there's a brief period when YouTube's doing stuff to the video when it's not available early on, but it will be available long term. I have no intention to take it down until YouTube stops working, which I don't expect will be very soon. But watch it tomorrow just in case YouTube folds over the weekend. Anonymous, thank you very much. Thank you, Anonymous, for coming on and asking some really great questions. Likewise, Kevin, thank you. And to the RV Addict, also called Kevin, thank you as well. Thank you, Nicholas. Useful, enjoyable. Have a great evening. So I will stay monitoring the chat for the next 5 or 10 minutes if you've got questions or comments. Otherwise, I'm going to sign off now and say thank you all very much for attending. It's been a delight providing you with this information. Take care.